Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. I'm Dave G, and joining me tonight is my co-host.
Hello everybody, I'm Kyle.
And tonight we're going to be taking a look at one of the most talked about films in the world at the moment, Babylon. Now, you know this is a big film because they brought all the stars to Australia to promote this film over the weekend. And that might possibly be because this movie is a little bit of a hard sell, let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's not the most attractive car on the lot, is probably the best way to put it, because it has a massive runtime of 3 hours and 10 minutes. People are starting to hear about the more edgy side of this film. Kyle and I were just talking off air. It's not the kind of film that you can take mum and dad along to and sit comfortably and watch. But to give you a little bit of an idea about what this film is about, it's basically about a group of characters that find their lives intertwining in 1920s Hollywood. You've got Nellie Leroy, played by Margot Robbie, who dreams about being a successful actress, but early on in this film, she isn't even known to anybody. And then when she does become known, she's kind of known as the body rather than a serious actress. There's Jack Conrad, played by Brad Pitt, who the world is his oyster, but as Hollywood starts to change, he begins to realize that perhaps life is going to be very, very different going forward. You've also got a jazz singer in there as well who wants to make the switch from basically playing at these parties and being able to actually play for films and in films. And then you've got Manny Torres, played by Diego Calva, who kind of suddenly arrives in this lifestyle of orgies and parties and realizes that he wants a job on a film set. Now, mate, this is such a strange and unusual film, I guess is the way to put it. What were your thoughts on this film?
Yeah, as you said, it's a really hard one to recommend to anybody. I appreciated that it was kind of a takedown of Hollywood. Like I liked that. I like movies about the seedy underbelly of Hollywood and and even just movies about filmmaking in general. In some ways, it reminded me a little bit of the Fabelmans as far as like movie making. I appreciate movies like that, but this one, just the way that its director and writer-director Damien Chazelle has gone about it, it goes in so many different directions, and none of them really pan out that well. I think it's in its attempts to be an epic, it fills an over 3 hour runtime unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And in trying to show the decadence of Hollywood and the overindulgence, it itself becomes this overly indulgent, decadent movie. And so I think it really hurts itself, and it's one that's very hard to even see what he was trying to accomplish here. Like it is a very kind of aimless movie, as beautiful as it is. The costume design, all that stuff, I really did appreciate it on a technical level, but the story of this movie just doesn't. It isn't enough to fill like a over 3 hour feature, especially when so many better movies about Hollywood exist, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So what about yourself, dude? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I was the same. Like, my emotions during this film were so up and down on whether I even liked the film. Like, the start of the film, I don't think I'm spoiling anything because everyone's talked about this, but within, like, the first 10 minutes of watching the film, you see an elephant defecate on someone, and it almost feels like, what's going on? Like, this feels like an Adam Sandler kind of comedy. Like, why is that there kind of thing? And then as Giselle tries to show the corruption, I guess, of Hollywood, you have scenes in there like of like a prostitute peeing on a guy and stuff like that at the party, and it's like I found myself thinking, is that supposed to be like a reference to the alleged rumors about Donald Trump? Like what was that coming from? Like you can show that kind of thing and those kind of parties without going that far. Like you look at Moulin Rouge and stuff like that, or even Almost Famous, which is one of my favorite films. Like that alludes to some of the stuff that's happening to the Band-Aids in that film, but you don't actually see it. And it's one of those movies where I kind of look at it and I think it's a beautiful film, and I loved the rest of the film after that first, like, probably 20 minutes. I totally loved the film, but who's the market for this film? Like, I've been watching all the promotion over the last week with the stars talking about the film, and it's almost being billed as, no, this is like Moulin Rouge. It's Moulin Rouge meets Not Quite Hollywood. And I just get a funny feeling there's going to be a massive walkouts during this film, especially in the first 20 minutes. And I'm not someone who believes in censorship in films, because some of my favorite films have been pretty graphic films, but I just feel that the way that they're selling this movie is it's going to lure in the wrong people to go and watch this film. Like, if you just said this is a film that's showing at Palace and showing at Nova, and people might want to go along and see it, then I can understand that. But this is being promoted as in, like, oh, this is like a Baz Luhrmann spectacular. Come along and watch it. And I think, there's going to be some walkouts for the over 60s, I'm thinking.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I'm no prude with movies myself, and neither am I afraid of lengthy films. Like, my favorite gangster film is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I knew I'd friggin' mess up the name. Once Upon a Time in America, which is a 4-hour, really harsh gangster film.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite movies, and so I'm fine sitting through long movies if the story is enough to actually warrant it. But this is a movie that I feel that even if you cut an hour out of it, you would still need to trim more. Yeah. Because I just don't think it is focused enough to be able to tell the story that it's trying to tell. It is funny, and I really did think it was funny in quite a lot of places. I mean, I for how much I'm complaining about how long it is, one of my favorite scenes is probably one of the longest scenes in the movie, which is when they're trying to film one of the earliest talking pictures.
Yes.
And just the multiple takes and the frustration of this new technology, and just how angry they're getting, and how crazy and at each other's throats they're getting as it goes on and on and on. I love that scene. I love that whole sequence. That was hilarious, but it was with characters that I just didn't really care about.
Yeah.
And this is a problem with it. Like, there's entire characters in this movie that I think could be cut from the film, and you wouldn't miss them.
Yeah.
Because they're just how badly, just how underwritten they are. Like, the trumpet player, Sidney Palmer, played by Jovan Adepo, he's great in the film.
Yeah,
and I really thought that his just him the scenes of him arguing with his bandmates were interesting and were entertaining, and I liked the idea of showing, like, one of the first African American movie stars in Hollywood, but his whole story is just almost an aside. Like, I swear, like an hour will go past and he's not in the movie.
Yeah.
So, like, what? Like, is he even important to the film? Why are you showing this? And that's just a problem with the movie. It really, it's like it's a 2-hour movie stretched to 3 hours.
Yeah. I love that scene that you were talking about there, and I also loved when you first see them working on the film sets, when Nellie first gets to her first silent film set, and you see the way they're going about it, and she's different to the other actresses that's around, because she's not afraid to like pull her top down and stuff like that to steal a scene. And you also see how Manny first wins over the people working on the set, because he's the guy that's willing to go over the top to make sure something gets done. Those elements of the film are absolutely spectacular, but all through this film, I kept on thinking of those things that we were taught at uni when certain artists and painters over the years get to that point where they're like, I need to make my opus, I need to make the thing that I'm going to be remembered for, and they put so much effort into it that it takes years and years and years to make, and then people look at it and go, oh, it's kind of strange, I don't get it, like, but to the artist, it's their masterpiece, and I almost wonder if that's what's happened here with Damien Chazelle. It's like, he's so wrapped up in wanting to make a love letter to Hollywood and make an epic that he's gone too far. Because I argue a little bit, and I love the film, but I argue that Tarantino did that a little bit with his film, with his love affair to Hollywood as well, where I love the film, but it's not his best film. Whereas I think that in his mind, he might think that is his best film because that was his passion project. And that's why I find it hard to review this film, because there's things about Babylon I loved. I loved Margot Robbie's performance. I loved Brad Pitt's performance. I love those scenes that we just talked about, but it's all the stuff that's around it that I think is going to wreck this film. Like I said, I think people are going to get up and walk out. And I was watching people the other night. There were people that, when this film hit the 2.5 hour mark, they got up and walked out. And I don't know whether that was because they didn't realize it was going to be that long and they had to get home to babysitters and stuff like that. But for your average cinema goer, 3 hours and 10 minutes is a long stretch. And it's also a big investment into a film. I mean, you and I are cinemaphiles. We love cinema. We'll go along and, like you said, we'll go along and watch something like that. Like I went along and watched the director's cut of Dances with Wolves. We'll go along and see that, but I just cannot see this being a film where somebody goes this Friday night to somewhere like Fountain Gate and goes, hey, do you want to go watch that 3 hour and 9 minute movie? That's a bit weird. It's like, and I think the thing that makes me even more angry, and I know this is something that makes you angry, but a lot of our commercial cinemas here in Australia, for people listening overseas, don't show art house films. So the local cinema that Kyle and I go to most often didn't even show Fabelmans just recently. Like, they had posters up advertising it, but never showed it. But with this one, they're falling over each other to get it. It's like, I don't understand it, because this is so much more artistic than Fabelmans.
You said, it's so much more of a niche movie than what Fabelmans is. That's it. Fabelmans is a movie about, look at both of them, like the Fabelmans and this. Like, you could say that both of them are made by filmmakers. They're both written and directed by visionaries, and they are both movies that are at least this purports to be like a love letter to cinema, but the Fabelmans, you can see that in the movie. You can see that that's a movie about Steven Spielberg's love of movies and how that helped him throughout his life. Throughout his youth, I guess. Whereas this, is so cynical, and it's such a dark take on Hollywood and just filmmaking and Hollywood, and it's such a dark take on it that it's very hard to see it as any kind of an actual love letter, because it's not. Like Once
Yeah.
Upon a Time in Hollywood, yeah, that was a love. You can see that was a love letter.
Yeah.
And The Fabelmans, you can see that's a love letter. The Artist, you can see that's a love letter. Like, there's so many other movies um, about Hollywood and their move from silent film to talking pictures, and this one, it's so dark, and it's such an ugly movie in a way.
Yeah.
And again, not that I'm oh my god, nudity, my god, no. Like, it's nothing like that. It's such a dark movie in that way. It's more of a takedown of Hollywood than it is a love letter to it, and yet towards the end of the film, it's almost like Cazale has forgotten what type of movie he was making, and suddenly it becomes oh no, there's a good thing to Hollywood, like, I don't know, it's just kind of like it aimless is, I guess, the best way that I can say it. And like you said, Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, both of them were brilliant in the movie. Like, Brad Pitt has that timeless, like, he's got that fittingly timeless charisma of a leading man.
Yeah.
And Margot Robbie is great in her performance as well, but both of their characters kind of get weaker and more one note as the film goes on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you're right there where you say about how the film takes, like, not just twists and turns, but feels like it changes its tone, because we haven't even touched on one of the bits that one of my favourite performances in this was Tobey Maguire's performance.
Yeah.
But when he comes into the movie, it suddenly feels like I'm watching Barbarian 2, as he goes into, like, literally goes into the underworld, where it's almost like has a sci-fi kind of feel to it. Like, it's, it just feels like, and then it goes from that to Nelly at a party where you feel like you're watching Pride and Prejudice. It's like, it just goes around. Like, I called it a beautiful mess in my written review, in the sense that I do like this film. I see a beauty in this film, but at the same time, I see this horrible car crash of a mess that's all over the place. It almost feels like the kind of film that I would go back and watch and just watch segments of it. Like, I would go back and watch when Nelly first arrives on the set of a silent film. I would go and watch when they first try to change from silent films to talkies. I would go back and watch those scenes, but I wouldn't watch the first 20 minutes, and I probably wouldn't watch, like, when Nelly ends up at a party where she's got to impress people and it's all Pride and Prejudice meets upstairs, downstairs. Like, it's just such a mess of a film, but I still found beauty in it. It's weird.
That's the thing, yeah, like, I really did appreciate the costume design and hair and makeup, and just the realizing of 1920s and 1930s Hollywood. I really did like that. It is a very, in some ways, it is a very well put together movie. Like, I've heard some people likening it to films like Heaven's Gate or Waterworld, like these really huge epic movies that are kind of like a mess of a production.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think this one. I think the production of this, other than problems with COVID, delays in filming and such, I don't think it had any real major issues with putting it together. It's just the finished product is such a mess.
Yeah.
And I think you're right on the money. Like, it's almost like Damien Chazelle. Like, he wanted this to be his magnum opus. He wanted this to be his, like, he had such success with La La Land and Whiplash, and he wanted this to be like his take on of Hollywood itself. And rather than, like I said, like, rather than being a movie about the overindulgence of Hollywood, it just becomes a very overindulgent movie.
Yeah.
And it just kind of it fails at, I guess, whatever it is that it sets out to do.
Exactly. So I guess to wrap up, what are you going to give this 1 out of 5? Because I'm finding it hard to grade because of the fact that I hate parts of it and love parts of it.
I guess I can't say that I was ever truly bored watching the movie, so I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. it was a movie that I did find funny throughout it. Like, that's something. It wasn't a movie that it was just like a hard slog to watch, and it was just it's not a thoroughly unenjoyable film. Like, I did really find a lot of it to be quite funny, and it really does take on itself as a satire at times. But that 3 hour and 10 minute runtime and just the tone of the movie and its aimless script, like, these things really do pile up in the end. And like, really, before the credits rolled, I was just thinking, what the hell is this supposed to be?
Yeah.
So yeah, 2.5 out of 5 for me.
I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 because I did like the film. There was just parts of it that really, really frustrated me. And, like, I'm sure this is going to be one of those movies where I watch it sometimes and I think it's a 5-star film, and then I watch it other times and it's like a 2.5-star film. It's just, I don't know. I've never watched a film like this that's divided me so much. Even when I was writing my review this morning, I found myself, like, switching between whether I really liked it or whether I hated it. Like, it's such a divisive film. I'm sure this is going to be one of those films that a lot of, like, friends and couples go to see this weekend, and one of them's going to love it and one of them's going to hate it. Like, it's just got that feel all over it. But yeah, that's our thoughts on Babylon. Kyle's giving it 2.5. I'm giving it 4. Go along, check it out, see what you think, and then let us know what you think. Because, yeah, I'd be interested to see how many people out there do invest themselves into a 3-hour, 10-minute film and love it, or whether people are going to be, get me out of here, like, an hour into it. So, yeah, let us know what you think. But for now, I have been Dave G.
And I've been Kyle.
And that's it for this episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. We'll be back very, very soon with another one, so stay tuned.